Ellis, what do you see in the scrimmage and really everything over the last week since you last spoke?
I was disappointed in our scrimmage overall. It was, again, the main focus was to put the first group in some specific situations. That was really good. We did some what we call dirty show, that's blitz, live blitz, and we also did some third and long, and that was really good. The scrimmage was mainly what we call the blues. It was some guys who are competing for starting jobs, some guys who are competing to get in that 2 deep. I didn't think we made a lot of progress in that area. We got a lot of information on some individuals that did help us clear up a little bit, but I think our 2 deep is still a little bit murky now. And hopefully we'll have some more contact stuff here in the next couple, 3 days, and those will clear up. Some of it's good problems. I mean, we got some guys who are fighting and competing for the same jobs, and it's good competitiveness, but you'd like for it to clear up so you can get a good 2 deep. But overall, I thought it was about comparable to the first one, and you always want to see progress.
Was that mainly freshmen that you were disappointed with, or is that guys who you've seen a lot of before but just weren't delivering for whatever reason?
Most of them are new guys, but some of them are some guys who maybe redshirted last year or who were backup guys last year and now have an opportunity to step into a role that they didn't have last year. And that was some good individual performances that gave us a clear understanding, maybe some confidence in them. But overall, I thought we kind of left with still some big question marks of who was the number 2 at a lot of different positions.
Who's your third linebacker right now?
That's a good question. That probably, is what I'm talking about with this scrimmage we had. The one with the most experience is obviously Swain, and he's played in SEC football games before, so in many, many ways he's ahead of some of those guys. But there's some others who've shown some playmaking ability that exceeds that, and they just got to get better. They got to get more repetitions. They got to get familiar with our scheme. Right now, it would not be a clear cut who is the third best linebacker.
Did anybody separate themselves? You said there were some good individuals. Could you mention some of those?
Well, I would mention a few of them. I would mention. I thought that Trey Williams did enough that I've got to keep him battling for the 2 deep. But he's what I said before. He's one of the guys who doesn't have a grasp of our system yet, so he makes typical freshman mistakes. But he shows some good playmaking ability. We thought out at corner. We've moved Trevon Reed over to the field corner with JJ and moved Mincy back to the boundary, and feel like we've got pretty good depth there now. Trevon did pretty good, and we've got a lot of confidence in him and JJ rotating at that spot. Up front, that was one of the areas where we had a lot of guys missing the scrimmage. Devereaux and Devontae both hardly got any reps, if any, in that scrimmage, and of course we depended on them to be in that 2 deep. A couple of guys, I thought Kenyon's making some progress. I think he'd be a role player for us. He's a really good third down pass rusher maybe. But those would be some guys that sort of jumped out on mine.
With Mincy going back to the boundary, what does that mean for Halsey, and how's that kind of
Yeah, what we want to make sure is that we're 2 deep in both places. Josh has got a knee injury. Mincy hurt his shoulder the other day. It sort of makes you start thinking, we don't need 11, we need 22. So we wanted to move him back over and have some competition there at the boundary corner and move Trevon over to field corner. We feel like right now the 2 best corners are Mincy and Jones. And so you want to get somebody behind them that's really pushing them, that you wouldn't have a big drop off. At the time we had Trevon and Halsey over the boundary, so we moved Trevon over to the field side and feel like we got a little bit better 2 deep looking situation right now.
What situation with Halsey? Is he out?
He's not out. They want us to limit his reps as he rehabs, not rehabs, but as he comes back full speed on that knee. So with that limitation, we wanted to make sure we had at least 2 good people working in that spot.
Ellis, where does Javier Mitchell kind of fit into things right now?
He was doing really well. He missed some practice the other day, and I think he really physically has got the skill set that he could be that third linebacker I was asked about a minute ago. He's got a good familiarity with our system, but because of the lack of playing time last year and also the injury that happened to him at the end of the season kept him out of spring ball. So he wasn't able to make the progress I hoped he would make. Still makes some mistakes that are critical. If he can get that down and clear those up, I think physically he might be one of the best 4 guys.
When you said you think that Mincy and Jonathan are your best 2 corners, does that include Halsey when he's healthy, or is that because he's hurt?
Yeah, right now there's a cover corner and there's a complete player, they're probably the guys that are most ahead right now. You know, Halsey missed a whole half a year last year, and of course Jonathan did too. But the one thing we do know, Mincy can play either. He can play the field or the boundary. Jonathan is limited to play the field, and we needed some depth over there with Mincy and Halsey. We felt like Trevon had the speed and athleticism to move the field. But I would say that the ones that have had the best camp, no question, been Mincy and Jones.
So who would start probably at the boundary in the game?
Mincy,
But he's not gonna start, so.
do what now?
I said.
Oh, you mean if he's not, if he's not allowed to start,
Yeah.
Halsey? Yep, Halsey.
Halsey.
And that's another good reason, you know, for the, pushing them over there where they compete with each other. And there are a couple other guys who've done a good job, but I would say right now, it's fairly clear those four are ahead.
How's Darius Owens doing?
I couldn't.
How's the Darius Owens doing?
He's doing good. He had a setback the other day, some infection got into one of his surgeries. Thank goodness it wasn't extremely serious, but it's kept him from getting practice reps. And so it's sort of set him back a little bit.
Is Halsey's knee injury the same knee that he hurt last year, or is it the other one?
It's the same one. It's more of a process they want us to follow in how many reps he gets each day and how much contact, just as a precautionary. He is fully recovered, but the summer went very well for him, but obviously you don't have contact during the summer. So a lot of the football specific stuff. So the doctors want us to take a certain path with him and limit his pitch count, you know, that expression we use sometimes. And that's why we've had to make sure we had good depth competing over there.
Sounds like your guys are banged up here and there. Is it limited what you can do with some of what you?
That probably has been my biggest frustration. You always come into camp and you'll have some pleasant surprises with individuals and some disappointments. You kind of in your mind, you project which ones you think are gonna come in and make a hit. And it's always some disappointments and then some really pleasant surprises. So those things you just always expect. But the nagging injuries have kind of had us, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And there are really some guys who got a chance with the skill set to get right in the middle of things. And this limitation on practice is holding them back in fundamentals and understanding what we're doing in the scheme.
Ellis, who's your number 3 choice of safety right now? Who's behind those front two guys?
Well, no question, Whitehead's best at free safety. And right now, Rudy's pushed ahead at boundary safety. Moncrief is right behind him. I would say that if, you know, if something would happen to one of those first two, Rudy would move to the field safety, Moncrief would step up. Rudy could play either. Whitehead could too, but we like him at free. Moncrief is settled at boundary only. So those are the guys right now that are really way ahead of the others. But we're really pleased with Boston, he got hurt. And they've been really pleased with Stephen Roberts, and then he got hurt. And for young freshmen, that's a hard thing, because when they miss 2 or 3 practices and you're in the middle of installing things and they miss it, it can really be hard for them to catch up. But I've got confidence that Roberts will get back in the swing, and he'll get right back in the mix when he gets healthy.
Did you say that Rudy is ahead of Moncrief now?
He is right now. It's pretty even, but Moncrief missed some practices. I think he had a virus. One day dehydrated, another day, about 3 or 4 days later, he had a virus, a bug, dehydrated him again. So he's missed a little bit of time, and Rudy kind of took advantage of it. But they're both doing a good job.
What's Stephen Roberts' injury?
He got a hip pointer the other day.
Is he still currently not practicing?
He practiced today. He probably still a little tender, but he was able to go full speed.
There seems like a lot of question marks with your tackles. You're pretty confident with the tackles you have, and not a lot of talk about them.
We feel good. We've got working game in Monterey just inside and out. But the other guys, you know, the disappointing thing, frustrating things, we can't get Devereaux and Devontae out there for 3 or 4 days in a row. They've been really hampered with nagging injuries. Devereaux hurt his knee, and Devontae's back has been irritating him with just spasms. So it's nothing extremely serious. But again, for 2 new players, missing a couple of 3 days of practice can really set them back. So that would be the only thing on the interior that we're not getting enough work with those guys, because I think they could get right in the middle of it too deep.
You're getting to a point now with all these injuries and based off what Coach Garner was saying about some of the freshmen that you're starting to lean toward maybe the possibility of having to play a guy like Kenyon or Rangy Williams early in the year on the D-line.
I don't know how early we'd play them. They would be role players right now. We've got some depth without them. You know, the thing about redshirting comes up all the time, and you like to let the player have a little input on it unless it's just an absolute clear-cut situation. But if a player is good enough to leave in 3 years, you redshirt him and you get 2 years out of him. That's not very smart. If If you're not good enough to leave early, you might not want him around for 5 years. I'm just not big on redshirting. In our conference, I'm not big on redshirting. You know, I believe you play them the first year, and, you know, because if you lose them after the third year, you want to get 3 years out of them. And if they weren't good enough to play the first year, and I'm not talking about injuries, but if they're not good enough to play the first year, then you're probably going to be recruiting over the top of them for the next 2 or 3 years. So if you can play them, play them. You know, that's our philosophy, and that's why we like to play a lot of players.
How's the progress been made on identifying those pass rushers in general, no matter who they are, just how's that coming?
It's going well now. We've not gotten to where we wanted to, and then we put a special situational 3 different series in the scrimmage the other day, and the orange, our first units went against each other on a 3rd and long period, and we got a lot of really good work. You know, we've been working Casanova up there a little bit, and he's getting better. He can straight pass rush off the edge as good as anybody, but you have to have that front 4 coordinated on twists. And then we got some blitzes, he's got to know what he's doing. So now he's getting to the point where he can do the whole package rather than just go out there and edge rush. But we got some other guys out there. Kenyon's done a good job. And I'm talking beyond our best guys that have played before. So, you know, we were able to get a lot of work done on that, and I think it helped us identify them.
Couple more. Ellis, I wanted to ask you, there's been a lot of national criticism on Nick as a passer. From your point of view, what have you seen from him in his development? I know we talked to Red, but you're a defensive coach. How have you seen him progress, specifically as a passer?
I mean, to me, I think he's made a lot of progress, and we've obviously put a lot of emphasis on it through the spring and then into the camp. And I think he's obviously gotten a lot better. Our bulk of our throwing game is play action game. When you got a running game like us, you know, it's going to be open. But his accuracy and timing and all of it seems better to me, you know, just being on the other side of the ball.
Is Boston back yet from his injury?
He's not yet. He's not yet. We're hoping that, you know, they've got that cliche day to day, and we had a pretty nasty sprain. But sooner we get him back, the better. It's hard for him to catch up. He doesn't hurry to get back.
When does game prep begin? Now it's just over 2 weeks to the season opener. When do you guys start to transition?
We will really get into it almost wholesale next week when classes begin. We did do a little Arkansas today, helping each other out with our twos. You know, we ran plays for each other a little bit that carried over, but completely getting ready in a game plan fashion with swapping people to completely do their plays and give us their looks. We'll start that next week.
How's
competition going at the star?
I'm sorry?
Competition at the star position, how's that going?
It's going pretty well. We're a little nervous about our depth behind Justin. But Parisi right now is we're not sure he's going to be able to play early, and the rest of them are freshmen. I actually took a look at TJ this morning. Let him play a little bit of it. We probably, you know, a game like Arkansas, that guy's going to end up on the box a lot. So I'll have a linebacker that can play that spot also to back up Justin. And you go back to the field alignment when they're out wide against the 4 wides and 3 wides and the things that our offense does. We've got several defensive backs that can step up there and run it.
Is there a reason why you're worried about the reason to start in that order?
He's hadn't had a lot of reps, you know, hadn't had a lot of practice reps, getting Justin ready. And right now, we got to get some depth out there.
You all right? Thanks, Coach.
Justin Fitzgerald.